The CSIS Task Force on Humanitarian Access is an initiative that I created under the Humanitarian Agenda program that I direct here at CSIS. It's a bipartisan effort co-chaired by Senators Cory Booker and Todd Young, two congressional champions with different political points of view, but who understand the value of getting humanitarian aid to the most vulnerable. The task force brought together 22 diverse, influential, top experts in their field, predominantly from the humanitarian community.
Humanitarian access issues do not receive the attention that they deserve. These are about people's lives. These are about humanitarian law. This is about essential goods, services for vulnerable populations.
Over the last decade, humanitarian access has become an increasingly critical issue. It's become more complicated, it's become more prevalent, and the numbers of people who are in need, who we are not able to access, have grown exponentially.
The task force has identified what I believe is one of the most critical challenges that we face today. We're in a moment in history in which the humanitarian demand is at an unprecedented historic height.
Access means the ability to provide interventions, assistance to people wherever they are.
It's the way that people actually reach services from us and the way we both give them the voice and the right to ask and to request and demand resources that we need to provide, and also the mechanisms to do that.
Humanitarian access response is not solely to save lives. It's beyond that. We need to be able to look at quality of life, dignity, issues with mental health, sexual gender-based violence, physical barriers.
Most often we see that those who are most vulnerable and most impacted by access and other constraints in providing humanitarian response are women and girls, disabled populations. Really those who you would consistently think of as the most marginalized also tend to be the most marginalized in terms of their ability to access humanitarian response, and on the other hand, the ability of humanitarian actors to access those populations.
The international laws that governments have signed up to have never been so openly flouted. It is almost a deliberate political approach now to be counter-humanitarian, to subsume the lives of human beings underneath political and military aspirations. And while that's always been present, it's never been so overt.
Our efforts to constrain resources going to terrorists has collateral impact of making it tougher for humanitarian actors to get those resources. And we also live in a world today where we're seeing more and more of these conflicts that are requiring humanitarian support.
So why should the issue of humanitarian access be on the radar of U.S. politicians and U.S. policymakers?
U.S. leadership remains vitally important. We are at a moment right now, frankly, in which there's increased doubt and suspicion and skepticism about the U.S. commitment and adherence to these laws.
We, of course, are the biggest funders of organizations that work in conflicted environments. However, we need to actually be the moral leader as well.
The Congress should continue to care, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because we also want to ensure that taxpayer dollars are delivering the outcomes that we expect.
What Congress should be thinking about is how do we get the most out of the money that we put forward for humanitarian assistance? How do we have the best trained people? How do we help our partners to recruit and maintain their folks? What do we need to do to help them be better at negotiating access?
I think it is more important than ever that we develop a robust dialogue across our national security community that would include those who work counterterrorism issues and those who are involved in delivering humanitarian assistance.
It's important for the diversity of voices here to come together so that Congress will know what the community is thinking and how we can actually make a difference.
Humanitarian access constraints is not a new issue, and there's no quick, easy fix to this. Our hope is that the CSIS Task Force on Humanitarian Access will create new conversations and that policymakers will listen to our recommendations to elevate this issue, to bolster training and technology, to strike a new balance between humanitarian principles and national security objectives, as well as to harness data and increase accountability.